Yo. Anyway, I'm just I'm wearing what officially, you're seeing the players wear in the press box when they get trashed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to look cool and hip. This is my best look. You asked if this is a Flash Gordon shirt, or I mean, no, not like not Flash Gordon, but
Shazam? Is it Shazam?
it's Shazam. Good call. So that means it's way not as cool as Flash. Flash is like cool. I was into Shazam as a kid, so I've got a Shazam shirt, which is totally not cool in every which way. So the irony of not being not cool is what I'm going for, which is what I go for almost every day of my life. All right, so here we go. We're gonna get right into it. Let's start up. We got lots to talk about. Not a lot of time to do so. Here we go. It is the 4/3. Okay, we're gonna have that. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, February 3rd, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. Yo. This is the Buzzcast that comes to you every Friday, Monday through Friday this time. I've lost my train of thought. I'm so cool looking at myself. I just can't believe how hip I look.
Yeah.
I'm just blowing myself away here.
Jeez.
Anyway, let's get into some news. We're going to get into some rumors, all kinds of things. But there's a lot of interesting things that are happening. And the newest thing, which I was just trying to post before and didn't get a chance to, is Mike Ribeiro being put on waivers.
Yeah.
This is big news. Ribeiro, what are your thoughts on this, Mike?
Well, I mean, he's had a checkered past. I mean, he's always been a player who's been effective on the power play, been pretty effective in sort of a second line forward role as a specialist, but he's not doing. I don't think he's doing what the Predators paid him for. He's making $3.5 million as a UFA at the end of the year. He's gone. Dallas, Washington, obviously the Arizona situation where he got bought out. I'm not exactly surprised, but I mean, he sort of fits into what you think that Laviolette would be looking for in terms of like a player who can play up an up-tempo offensive game, but he's just not. I guess he's not doing it for them. So they've brought up some of their younger guys. I know they brought up Fiala after the All-Star break. Russ and I have been talking about that guy for a while. Maybe they're going to go more towards younger players, and maybe this is a way of, sending out a signal to some other teams in the league that he's available.
Yeah. There's a lot to this. Okay, there's a lot more to this situation, I think, from what I've been told, than just him not performing well. But we don't like to get into that world, so I'm not going to go there. But I'm just saying that I think that what's happening here is a situation where they needed him. I mean, they need him to play. They need his ability this is not a team that's gifted with a whole lot of offensive skilled players, but at the same time, this is a team that absolutely has shown in the past. In the past we've seen stuff. I'm getting texts now, so that are interesting about this too, but I can't get into it. But yeah, in the past we've seen that Nashville stands up and makes players, accountable for everything they do on and off the ice. So, this happened obviously with Radulov, and I think that's happening here with Ribeiro. What is happening?
I mean, I think I don't know the off the ice component. I don't know if there's something going on in the locker room, something going on away from the team. I'm not privy to that. All I know is 46 games and he's got 4 goals. You expect more than 4 goals out of a guy making $3.5 million. So in spite of what may be happening off the ice, whatever that is, the on the ice results are not really there. So I think that might be a factor. He only scored 7 goals last year too. He had 43 assists, but they need somebody making that kind of money to score a few more goals.
Yeah. And I don't expect anybody to pick him up off of waivers either. I'd be really shocked if someone did.
And the majority that they can save on the salary cap is $950,000. So if he does clear waivers and gets sent down to Milwaukee.
Uh-oh. Mike's frozen. I don't know if you guys can see me or not, but Mike is frozen. Let's see.
Taking up $2 million.
We were frozen there for a second, Mike. Hold on. So, all right, Mike, you okay? I will get Mike to log out and log in again, and we will continue with the show. Hopefully, I'm assuming you can still see me. Fine. If you're watching me out there, text me and tell me you can. That would be good. But I continue. I think that, for the most part, how this is going to play out here is, the Predators have always been a team that's not afraid to bring up young guys. They have a lot of young talent. They have a lot of young speed, which will help them. And and Laviolette and Poyle even more so are not there to screw around. This is not what they do. So they won't be screwing around. And I would expect something here to give. I would not expect any team to pick him up at all. Anyway, there was hope that things were going to be okay with Ribeiro. He was a good soldier for a while there. Anyway, we'll leave it there. I don't want to get too much into it. Mike will be back shortly. Let's get into. So I wanted to Patrick Marlo, of course. You got to talk about the San Jose Sharks. We go through some news around the league. Patrick Marlo has scored his 500th goal, which is pretty amazing. Really pretty incredible. I mean, Marlo, I think a lot of people have always been tough on, but the incredible thing about Marlo is how fast this guy got to playing 1,000 games. I mean, I've heard it mentioned on XM, and it's true that if there weren't work lockouts, he would have probably been the fastest player ever to get to 1,000 games. You look at his career totals, he's one of the healthiest players in the NHL for many, many years. So yeah, I mean, there's that. Okay, so I'm working fine. All right, that's good. Thank you guys for sending me stuff out there, because you never know if I'm just talking into nothingness and it's not working. It's not going online. For those of you just joining, my cool hipness today is to simulate what it's like for a player now to get a healthy scratch. This is sort of what Shane Gostisbehere looked like last night in the press box. So, and it's funny. Ghost looks all crazy, and I wish I got a picture of it. There was a great picture of Gostisbehere and last night. Lord, sorry, I'm just trying to get this together. I will get that picture up in a second. I'll get in the press box picture. So very interesting. All right, let's go into some news. Marlo gets his 500th. We talked about that. That's good. Barkov and Huberdeau being cleared to play. That's what the blog's about today. And how strange is this? I mean, how weird is this? It's it was just a few weeks ago, right? Just a few weeks ago that these two players were basically said they're gone for the season, and suddenly they're both back. I mean, this is a game changer, because they look at the standings, and this team is not that far off. Not that far off at all. Hey, Mike.
Was having some problem there, but now we're back.
All right. I was just talking by myself to about Barkov and Huberdeau being cleared.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, it's funny because a report came out last month saying they were probably out for the season. And at that point, Florida was really, in the dumps. They hadn't reacted well to Rowe as their new coach. Now all of a sudden, not that they're burning down the doors of the Eastern Conference, but they are 5-3-2 in the last 10 games. So they've won 2 of the last 3 games. They're a point or 2 behind Toronto. They're in the mix, and now getting Barkov and Huberdeau back, 2 of their 3, I'd say 3 or 4 best forwards is. Oh yeah. Now, if they're anywhere close to being 100%, I wouldn't think that Huberdeau was coming back from the Achilles injury, Barkov from a back injury, and they're very important players. I would think that they're not bringing them back unless they're 100% or pretty close to it. Yeah,
and it's something for them both to come in at the same time. How strange is that? It's I mean, this is not, and it's not a move. I just said, Jesus, this is a move to, is this a move out of desperation? It's not. I talked to somebody down there today, and these are just both healthy at the same time. I mean, Huberdeau hasn't played a game this year. Hurt himself in the preseason. Yeah. Barkov was really playing well when he got hurt, but has missed the last 15 games. So yeah, these are. I mean, without them, my goodness, without them.
Well, I think now teams on the periphery or battling for a playoff spot, and that I'm talking about here, the Islanders, Toronto, Philadelphia. This news has got to scare the crap out of them, because with Florida, the way they played in the second half of the year last year especially, and Barkov and Huberdeau showing the progress they did playing with Yager. Now, basically right now their team has been carried by guys like Trocheck, who was one of their all-star selection. You bring Barkov and Huberdeau back, team them up with Yager again, you got an entirely new and effective number one line, and I mean that adds a lot. So I mean, I would say right now they're it's optimistic that they can get back into the playoff race and maybe either get a wild card spot or one of those 3 spots in the Atlantic.
Yeah, no, you're right, and this team has been up and down. Gallant's gone, and yet, like you said, they're still there. I mean, this is an obviously talented team, and they haven't been able to get it all together completely. But my goodness, I don't know if you saw the news that Chris Pronger works for the NHL Department of Player Safety. Has joked that he fined himself $5 for his hit on Justin Bieber that we talked about before, which I love.
Yeah, he was interviewed on Toronto radio and said that he took it easy on him because if he really wanted to hurt him, he could have. I don't doubt that in the slightest.
I say based on his previous history, he got off easy on this one. Pronger definitely has a history, but based on the fact that it was Justin Bieber, I think the world is perfectly fine with this $5. It's fine.
Well, I mean, he still is technically an employee of the Arizona Coyotes. So if he did something really bad, Bieber could sue the Coyotes because he is an employee of theirs.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's hopefully that.
A little news that just popped up here. The meeting between the NHL, the IOC president Thomas Bach, and the IIHF president Rennie Fassel. It's already ended. It was sort of a meet and greet meeting, and according to the reports, a decision needs to be made on Olympic issues by the middle of March. So if nothing is done by the middle of March, then that's pretty much a no-go.
Wow, putting it off again.
Yep.
Even oh man, goodness. I mean, that's beginning middle of March. I can tell you that the Team USA and Team Canada, the people who run Hockey Canada and Hockey USA, aren't going to be happy about this. They really want to get on with it. It doesn't make it is a huge difference in what they have to prepare. So, and it's not a long time now. We're less than a year away. So,
yeah, apparently mid-March is the time when Fassel was going over to South Korea for, just lay out the preliminary plans for the Olympics, and he basically says he needs to know more before that. So I think that's sort of unofficial line of demarcation here.
Wow, that's a line in the sand, I'll say. Interesting. All right, so I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I'm still with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I keep wavering because when I talk, actually when we talked to Kevin,
yeah,
you get one side of the story. Then I had an interview with Bill Waters for my blog on Hockey Buzz, and I asked him whether he thought that they were going or not, and he says, I think they're going. He says, I think this is all negotiation, and at the 11th hour, he thinks that if the IOC gives anything, then then probably they're going to go. But I don't know. I'm a skeptic here. I think they're not going.
I mean, does this take away from the wonder that is the Olympics a little bit? Like, I mean, that's what I mean. It's just. I mean, the Olympics are the Olympics. They're really. I mean, this just kind of is when it's being. People who go to the Olympics. What do you see? What do you see from athletes who go to the Olympics? How just incredibly honored they are to be there, and how. And when it gets down to now, it's negotiations on whether or not they're going to go or not. It's kind of. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've never found any wonder in the Olympics when it comes.
Yeah, I know you're not an Olympic guy. I know.
Oh no! It's not that. I mean, don't get me wrong. 1980, there was wonder in that because it was amateurs. This is bargaining over money. There is no wonder in the NHL and the Olympics. It's a tournament. It's I get into it. I got into 2010. I wanted the U.S. to beat the Canadians because I'm an American. But it didn't destroy my life. That's when Sidney Crosby scored the golden goal. It's a tournament. And
I'm all about the Olympics. I love the Olympics. I will watch every event on my phone or my iPad. I don't know. I love it. And I love the Winter Olympics even more than the Summer Olympics. Just, I don't know. I've always liked the Winter Olympics better. But, there's less events. Summer Olympics, there's so many. Last year's Summer Olympics, I just loved. I mean, I loved the Summer Olympics 2 years ago. So whenever they were. Okay, so now it's coming out now that the Blues are open to sign and trade for Kevin Shattenkirk, as if this wasn't happening for the last month. This is now being discussed now that this has been going on for a long time. But yes, now officially It's being reported, and the Bruins and Rangers have kicked the tires on this, apparently, quote unquote, kicked the tires.
Yeah, this is definitely a mechanism for Doug Armstrong to get as much as he can for Shattenkirk, because
Yes.
I'll bet you.
Yeah, and the idea you say that because obviously, a signed Shattenkirk is worth a lot more than a UFA Shattenkirk. So,
right. I mean, let's just say this. I'm assuming this is a product of the fact that the rental market for Shattenkirk is not yielding what Armstrong thought it was going to. Now, the thing is, he has to have a partner in this. He has to have Shattenkirk and his agent on board to say, okay, we're going to trade you. We're going to trade you where you want to go, and you're going to have the freedom to talk to them. Maybe they don't want to negotiate right now. Maybe they want to negotiate in July when the market is there, when everybody can get into it. I mean, this is sort of limiting what Shattenkirk can do in terms of like who he wants to talk to. He can talk to 30 teams or 29 teams if he wants to in July. Here, he's subject to who St. Louis has talked to regarding the trade.
You're right. I think this timing is horrible. I mean, this has been going on for a while, but for this to come out right now, I think is horrendous. I mean, I was really kind of surprising to me. Yes, this has been going on, but it feels as if when something like this happens, just from my own years and years of doing these rumors, when it gets to the mainstream like this, where you hear that they are, they're open to signing trades, usually that's because the team involved, the Blues, have leaked it out, that they wanted to get it out there to the mainstream because everybody knows this has been going on. Like the people, I've been writing about it, Mackenzie, Drager, they know this has been going on for months. They've been talking about it. But now the Blues really want it out there that is akin to shopping a player in a way. And it really, with a team that just fired their coach, a team that's desperate for, to try to make it into the playoffs, Shattenkirk being such a major player on that, this is a weird move. I mean, to want this out there, like that's, and it almost tells me that they're going to trade him. Like if I think that for this to get out like this, it implies that they've decided that they are going to trade him. And I would even go as far to go a little bit further. This is all speculation here, but just based on history, when I've seen the way these things play out with sign and trades, they already have an offer. This would be my bet. Shattenkirk already knows a place he would play, and he already knows how much he'd play there for. Because for this to get out now really put Shattenkirk into a weird spot if he doesn't have an offer. If he doesn't think he's comfortable going someplace, this puts him in the spot of, okay, really, you're open to sign and trade. Aren't we trying to make the playoffs? Didn't we just fire our coach? What's going on here? This is a strange spot. And I really do believe that 9 times out of 10, when this stuff gets out there, it's because it wants to be out there.
Well, I mean, they're definitely drumming up business. I'm getting a bit of an echo here. Yeah.
I'm not hearing the echo, but
okay. I'll try to ignore it then. They're definitely trying to drum up business. Obviously, you may be right that they've got something lined up, but when it comes to, take the two teams that are rumored, the Rangers and the Bruins. Okay, how do they make that work? Because the Rangers are right up against the cap. You're talking about probably having to clear. This year his salary is, I think, 4.2 or 4.25.
Right.
So you have to clear, and the Rangers have about, let's say in the neighborhood of $1 million. I think they may have a little more. That means you have to clear $3 million in salary off of your roster. That's not easy to do.
Right.
It's not, so either that $3 million player has got to be included in the deal, which means, I know that there was some talk from Larry Brooks a couple weeks ago about Shattenkirk, and the name that popped up in his column was JT Miller, and I think he makes a little over $2 million. Yeah. So that, that works out in that respect. But then next year, you're talking $7 million, and you haven't gotten rid of Rick Nash yet. You still have him for another year. Maybe they find a way to move him out, but it's going to be tough to move the shells around if it's the Rangers or if it's the Bruins, trying to get rid of a David Krejci or something of that nature. To me, again, I'm not saying that, I'm not disputing what's out there, that he might very well be moved before March the 1st. But again, I just, and in the end, maybe the Blues take their best offer, and even if it is not a sign and trade, it's a rental. But I don't know. This just strikes me of it's more rental than sign and trade. I can't see Shattenkirk and his agent buying into that.
Right. Yeah.
Unless it's absolutely the place he wants to go and he's absolutely getting the money that he thought he'd get.
I mean, that's what it has to be. And this, to me, this only gets out there if you already know, if you're comfortable with Shattenkirk, and Shattenkirk knows a place he can go, and he knows a contract he can sign, which he can sign now or he can sign in the summer. And Shattenkirk saying, okay, fine, get something for me and send me there now, because that team wants me now. This is what it feels like. I mean, and I'll bring up an interesting point yesterday. So I will tell you from now on, by the way, when I bring up an interesting point, I will tell you when it's interesting before I bring it up, so you know that it's an interesting point. This is an interesting point. And I won't let you decide. This is me telling you this is an interesting point. All right, yesterday, what did I write about? I wrote about
we can do this. That's the interesting point, Horn.
All right. Yesterday I wrote about Duchene, right? And I wrote about the fact that his price had gone up, right? And I wrote about that because I was told that by two people. Okay, so curiously enough, what happens later last night? You know, I get a text from people, and I think you might have been one of them who texted me. Where is it? No, it's actually, sorry, it wasn't you. Somebody else. I'm going to go to the text. So I get a text last night that, all right, here it is. Avalanche went 3 to 4 high-end pieces for Matt Duchene per Bob McKenzie, right?
Right.
3 young established player, top prospect in the first. If it's 4, first and second. I mean, this is what I wrote yesterday during the day. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now I'm not saying I'm a genius. I'm not saying Bob McKenzie. Sure, I'm surely not saying Bob McKenzie's stealing from me, because Bob McKenzie knows things a month before I know them. But it's just when he reports it, right? So,
right.
He's reporting it last night, and I reported it yesterday afternoon. We both were told we were allowed to report it yesterday. Again, these are similar situations where you feel like there's we're getting this out there. They want Duchene's price to be known, and they want it to be high. And they're gonna throw it out there, right? And will it change? It could, but they want this to be known. So I'm not gonna say who I got it from. I don't know who he got it from. I'm guessing it's probably the same people, because they were very similar in what I was told. Right. I was told the other, the 3-piece part before, and then yesterday I was told the 4-piece part, and I used that.
Kentucky Fried Chicken here, 3-piece or 4.
I know, really getting me hungry. So yeah. So this is what you have to look for this time of year. The clues are out there for rumors, and they're subtle, but sometimes they're not so subtle. And these are not subtle things. That the fact that Shattenkirk is suddenly available and they're open to sign and trade is a weird thing to say. I'm sorry, when your coach has just been fired and you're trying to make the playoffs, unless you know you can do it, unless you're just looking to better your situation, unless you know you can do it and you're trying to get a better spot. So to me, this pushes Shattenkirk towards the getting traded before the deadline, which is odd. But maybe this is a team that just says, okay, we're not that good right now. We have lost a lot of players for nothing in the past, in the last year, and we're not going to do that again. And we know we can get a lot for them, so we're going to make that move.
But the funny thing is that the story really hasn't changed much in 2 to 3 weeks. Ever since maybe like just after the new year, it's become increasingly clear, as St. Louis has struggled, that they're going to move him. But I think that the difference here in the report that happened yesterday with Shattenkirk was the sign and trade. With Duchene, everybody assumed that it was that prospect, first round pick, young NHL player, preferably a defenseman, because of the rumors of Brandon Carlo. It's just codified because you reported it, because McKenzie reported it, because they put it out there. They said they put it out over the gamut, over the hockey world. This is what we want.
Yep. This always tells you that things are either one of two things. Either they have something that they really like, or they have nothing at all. That's what I've always been told. It's like either they're not getting anything, so they have to go out there and they have to try it. But to not have anything and go out with a really high price is usually suicide, right? Because if they don't have anything right now, why do they suddenly feel like they're going to get a high price for them?
Well, putting this out there maybe drums up, maybe starts the bidding war. You never know.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, most of the GMs now, the big fear right now, of course, is this whole concept of a flat cap next year, that the cap's not going to go up. And talked about it last week, and I haven't written about it, but I've talked about it. I still do think the cap's going to go up. I think there's a lot of fear being thrown out there, but I think that the cap, I'm not going to say it's going to go up drastically, but I think it's going to go up pretty solid. I heard 2 to 3 million somewhere in there, which is what these teams really want and need. And then there is an aspect to this too that the players just can control, right? They can actually make it go up by taking the
right, but they negotiated the escalator clause last year, and the thing was, it's like that escalation costs them money in terms of escrow. The thing that drives them absolutely batty is the escrow. So yes, they can guarantee themselves a $2 million raise in the cap, but it's going to cost them another % or 2 in escrow. And they don't want that. They want the increase in the salary cap based on hockey related revenue. And there's no guarantee. Now, Bettman, when he was interviewed during the All-Star break, was talking rosy, was saying that, the league is doing very well but didn't talk in specifics. But when you get to the spring, and they say, okay, well, it's right now we're at 73. Maybe we go to 74.
Right.
That's not a big difference. I mean, $1 million is $1 million, sure, but that's one player on entry level. That's not much.
Yeah, no, there are teams that have already spent that $1 million. There's already teams that are thinking in terms of this is going up, and if it doesn't go up for those teams, the whole thing basically is going down. I mean, so they really have to. They're put into a terrible spot. Add the fact that you've got a new team in the league next year. That's intriguing, right? I think the world situation has made everybody a little bit nervous as to what's going to happen. So I think that there's a lot going on with that. I think that's playing into this as well.
In a way, in a roundabout way, the expansion is sort of like, if you remember the not a buyout situation, but the compliance buyout where a team just gets relieved of the salary. I mean, Vegas has to take on a certain amount of salary, and teams have to surrender and expose a certain amount of salary and a certain amount of players who have played a certain amount of games. So, for example, the Rangers might want them to take Rick Nash. Rick Nash has got a no movement clause, but maybe the Rangers can say, okay, Rick, you're a UFA at the end of next year. We're not going to sign you. So do you want to, go to Vegas and be the number one guy there, maybe get moved at the deadline, go someplace, try to win a Stanley Cup, and you clear cap space for us, and you help them out, give them a marquee player, and you maybe help yourself out. But it helps out everybody. It helps out Vegas, and it helps out New York. And a lot of teams are going to try to suggest to other teams, or try to suggest to Vegas to take that player to help them out in terms of salary cap. So that's going to help. And that's going to help alleviate things, even if there is a flat cap next year.
It should a little bit for some teams, but not every team. And the issue is, because Vegas can only do that so often, and there's only so many of those kind of plays you can make, because Vegas still has to put together a team. I mean, they have to get to the floor. That's the big thing for Vegas, right? They're going to have to get to the floor, and that's not going to be that easy to do with the kind of players that they're going to be grabbing, because they're going to they are going to rule the day on July 1st when it comes to UFAs. They can do anything they want to.
Yes, and they have I think a 48-hour window even before the 5-day negotiating period. So they have the foot up on other teams for RFAs, for UFAs. So they have an advantage. But
that's
also
just negotiation. They can't sign anybody though until July 1st, still, correct?
Right. But also,
which is kind of ridiculous anyway, the whole thing.
If they pay up, and apparently they're on their way to doing that, they pay up that $500 million, the entry fee. I've seen reports that they can make trades before March the 1st.
No, they can. They before March the 1st?
Before March the 1st. So I mean, it would not involve an NHL player, but it would involve,
have to involve prospects.
And that those could be those deals where wink wink nudge nudge, Jeff Gorton calls George McPhee and says, okay, we're going to give you Mackenzie Skapski, our backup, he's a goaltender of the future, whatever. Just bring we're going to give you somebody for the promise that you are going to take Rick Nash, or the promise you're going to take this guy and not take that guy. Those are the type of deals. They're going to accumulate assets, draft picks, prospects for promissory notes, so to speak. I think that's going to happen.
No, it is going to happen. There's no question about it. And I want to know. I'm really curious, how legally they can hold those things up, and if anything goes wrong with that kind of stuff. Because what's a person? There's some stuff that
Well,
You can't legally say that.
Well, no. See, the thing is, apparently, like I know that I've heard people talk about this before. The NHL needs to know what the conditions in the deal will be. Like if it's going to be one of those deals, you can't have a situation where they say, "Well, we gave this guy for him to take Rick Nash," and then the Rangers says, "I don't know what they're talking about." They have to tell the and now maybe the league will not leak it, but that's the whole thing.
Yeah, the league gonna have to know.
Tell the league what the promise that's being made.
It's gonna make for a fun rumor spring because
that'd be great.
All that stuff is gonna get out probably, or a lot of it's gonna get out. We're sure gonna try to get some of it out because I already have some good contacts in Vegas, which makes me happy because there's some really good people in that organization that I know well, and of course a lot of them are nervous because it's a new organization, so they're going to be careful to talk. But again, for Vegas, it doesn't matter that much because they're not competing against people in the thing, so they can pretty much tell you what they're doing, in many situations because it doesn't really matter. Like there's no they're not trying to hide what they're doing. It's them and the other 31 teams. That's basically what it comes down to. So they're on their own. If you saw this or not, Marian Gabourik's girlfriend sitting last night behind the bench. This is a shame. This is a great picture though that Marian posted. This is her looking happy about this situation. I've seen that look before. Yeah, this is like I just got hit in the face with a puck, and here I am, happy to be here. And him doing his best with like a tough little warrior. The puck knew to hit the hottest girl in the crowd. Gabrik tweets out.
Now, if he had been the one to shoot the puck into the crowd, I think he'd be talking about his ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, that is not a happy-looking person there. That's for sure. Gotta love it though. That's good stuff. What else do I have here? Other fun things here. Okay, Joe Thornton has tied Mike Modano for 23rd all-time in scoring last night, which is again, we talked about Thornton yesterday. Should he be on that list, the major list or not? I don't think Thornton should be on the list. I wouldn't put him there. I think he's just off of it, but he's definitely in the top 120.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys who's borderline, but again, it's if you notice, well, actually, no, excuse me, Ovechkin hasn't won a Stanley Cup. He's the only one of the modern players, the players still playing, that was put on that list that hasn't won a cup.
Right, and that would be Thornton too. You're right. That's interesting.
But his numbers are so.
Yeah, it's impossible not to put him on that list.
Right, but
totally agree. Source: NHL close to finalizing regular season games in Sweden with some preseason games in China, pointing towards the Olympics 4 years from now, which are in China.
Yeah, I believe the two teams going to Sweden are Ottawa and Colorado, and that makes a lot of sense. Ottawa because of Erik Karlsson, so and Landeskog in Colorado not as much, but still, there's a draw there. And I think that they said the China game was LA and Vancouver, or it's like one of the California teams in Vancouver. So it would be less. I mean, obviously it's a long trip no matter who it is, but
is this for next year?
It's for next year.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised by that. Okay, because I was trying to find that out. I couldn't seem to dig it out anywhere. It was next year. Okay, interesting.
It's all unofficial yet. They haven't confirmed it 100%, but it's out there so much that it sounds like it's going to happen. Yeah,
it does. It really does.
And early in the season, not like midway through the year. It sounds like it's going to be like October, November.
It's interesting because the last time when teams were going over to Europe to play preseason games and a regular season game that occurred over there, it didn't help the teams very much. Remember, it was always a problem. It shouldn't really be that big of a deal, honestly. I mean, it's a matter of another 2-hour flight versus coming from the West Coast to the East Coast. It's really not. It shouldn't be that. And China, not so much. China's pretty far away. Sweden's not too far away. As far as flights go, it's probably 2 more hours than it is to
7-8 hour flight, something like that.
Yeah, versus 5 or 6, to California from New York. So, yeah. But yeah, China, that's a big deal, and that'll be interesting. I mean, it would be a great situation for the players to go and see it. But it's really funny in that this is coming out now, in terms of the fact that we're talking about the Olympics. and the fact that they're looking rough to go to the Olympics, maybe this is a sign that they are going to go to the Olympics in South Korea, or maybe they're just going to skip an Olympics and go in China.
Well, the thing that's curious is that if you remember the whole proposal that was made to the NHL and the PA about extending the CBA, one of the things that was put out there as a carrot to the PA was, more of an international footprint, playing games, in other countries,
Right.
having a like a World Cup, not a World Cup, but having another international type of tournament. Well, this is happening without the agreement of
And this is the thing. You mentioned this yesterday, and somebody actually contacted me about what you said yesterday. Okay, you said the NHL giving up something for looking like they're giving up something for not getting any kind of anything back in return. Like they're looking like they threw this thing out. And what I was told was very clearly yesterday when someone contacted me. They said, you got to remember that whole thing was a lot of nothing. Like that the basically. Bettman said some things that were kind of like off the cuff about it. It wasn't an official proposal. Well, it was just the concept, and it never was. So the NHL doesn't look at it like it was something the players didn't accept, because the players never officially turned it down. I mean, they did. It was more along the lines of, from what I understand, at least from how it was told to me, it was just more of something that they didn't really want to get out there. It was almost said, tongue in cheek, sort of to a degree, but.
Well, in the end, it turns out to be a whole lot of nothing, like you said. But it also turns out that, I don't think that Gary Bettman or the league says anything that they don't actually mean. And when
I agree with that, but it wasn't as much of a negotiating thing as
an opening salvo. I think that's what.
Yeah, it was more like, okay, what about this concept? And it wasn't as if they were upset with the players for saying no to it, or not wanting to do it. It was definitely blown out of proportion a little bit.
Right, but my point was that it was maybe a grand bluff, and it's sort of like the whole Chicken Little response. The sky is falling, and then nobody listens to you when the sky is actually falling. It's like,
Right.
You don't bluff something like that hoping that the PA takes them seriously and says, okay, we'll negotiate an extension to the CBA, and then say, well, I didn't really mean it. Well, okay, then you just said something that could have been, it could have been a major impediment in negotiations down the line, and it was just an opening salvo. I mean, it wasn't a good tactic if they really didn't mean it in terms of we want to extend the CBA. I mean, I think they just mishandled it. Let's just say that.
But they did mishandle it for sure, and it should never have gotten out, and it should never have been said in public. It should have been kept. But it was such a juicy thing that someone got a hold of it and put it out there, and it's fine now. Ted Leonsis, of course, has said that he's okay with Ovechkin and Backstrom going. Although, however, today, Holtby has come out and said that he won't go. Holtby's come out and said that if Canada's not going with the full Canada thing, I am not going to the Olympics.
Well, that goes hand in hand with what Kevin said and what we yesterday about Hockey Canada and about USA Hockey.
Yeah.
I don't think yes, it could be if Jágr wants to go and play for the Czech Republic, great. If some Finnish player wants to go play for Finland, but when it comes to Hockey Canada and USA Hockey, and the league says we're not going, then USA Hockey in Canada is saying we're not going. So that's so I mean, to me, I don't know if that's a sign of anything, but if anything, it's a sign that they're not going, because why would that even come up?
Yeah, that's a good point. The Erie Otters' Alex DeBrincat has become the new franchise goal scoring leader for the Otters. Which DeBrincat is, of course, if you remember, he's a Chicago Blackhawks property who was at the World Cup, the World Juniors last year, and now is and was not invited to the World Juniors this past World Juniors.
Right.
Under a lot of controversy because he's one of the more natural goal scorers out there.
It was a little surprising. And he's well on his way to being a 3-time 50-goal scorer in the OHL, because he had 51 in each of the first 2 seasons. He's got 40 in 43 games. So he's got another 20 games to score 10 goals. He probably will. Yeah. So that's, I'm not going out on a limb here. I somehow think that the guy is going to be on the Blackhawks within a year or two.
I think he's going to be in the Blackhawks, and I think that it's fascinating. It's the rich getting richer type situation with Blackhawks to grab him, no question about it. They have to find. I mean, he's not a big guy, obviously. That's going to go against them to a degree, but my goodness, yeah. I mean, this is a team that Connor McDavid was on. Don't forget. I mean, this Otters team is This is not. I mean, I don't think he played as many years there as DeBrincat is, but DeBrincat is still taking that over, which is really I think pretty fascinating. And moving on, I have one more thing here. Let's see, where is it?
Well, while you're looking that up, one thing that about Duchene, Darren Drager yesterday indicated that Montreal, and we've mentioned this before, but it's gone off and on. We've heard Nashville, we've heard other teams. Montreal is in a position where they're sort of in an all-in mode.
Yep.
And that the type of move. Now, they have the pieces. They have the young pieces. They have 3 young defensemen under the age of 23, Bulio, and 2 former first-round picks, Juleson and Sergachev.
Yeah.
They have young forwards. They have their draft picks. They could make that move. It would be a major investment, but with their lack of offense, which has always been a problem, if you add Duchene into the mix with Pacioretty and Galchenyuk, that might be something that puts Montreal over the top.
Yes, that is if Michel Therrien and Matt Duchene can get along, because that's an interesting combination there. Matt Duchene is not the kind of player that Therrien generally likes. He's the opposite of that. He is an offense first guy who is a scorer who doesn't play great defense, works hard, and is streaky. These are all characteristics that Michel Therrien does not espouse on his team. So that's what's interesting about this to me. The Canadians are different if Therrien's not their coach, but at this time he is. So you have to consider. Now, of course, if you're a Duchene, you'll probably outlast Michel Therrien there. But the reality of it is, I don't know. That's now. And then last night, to me, there was a huge game that was played, and really, to me, one of the more shocking games of the year was the Ottawa-Tampa game last night, because this game is a game of all games that Tampa has to show up and win.
I don't. I'm more surprised. I really thought that in the second half they would find a way to get back into things. And so far, we're less than a week into the second half, the unofficial second half of the season, and the Lightning are wallowing. They're just, it's getting to the point.
They're at home. They're playing the Senators, they're I think they were going in. They were only like 4 or 5 points behind, but the Senators had 2 or 3 games in hand, so it was potentially a real big problem if they lost this game. They're at home. The Senators are there. They managed only 21 shots on the Senators in this game. The Senators outshoot them at home 30-21. Beat them 5-2, and that to me, this was as must a game as the Lightning have had. And this is so if there's a team that says they can turn it on, this was the time. This was when you had to do it. And
it's getting to the point now. I mean, okay, they have 50 points. The second wild card is 58. The third place in the Atlantic is 58. You're talking 8 points. I'm not saying they're done, but
they last night that was a big nail. That was the first real game to me. Like that was the first time that you could sit there and say, now you might have 2 more chances. Like you've blown one of them big time, and now because I mean the really interesting thing is Kevin Allen was talking to me about this yesterday. So Ken Holland had this theory of, okay, if you are 4 points behind or 6 points behind somebody, and in the NHL, and that team is probably a better than 500 team. So if that team's going to win 6 out of their next 10 games, say, and you're 4 points behind them, to catch them, you have to win 8 of your next 10. To pass them, you have to win 9 of your next 10. And at some point, that you run out of 10 games. Like you just run out of games, because the reality is, teams that are over 500 are in the playoffs, and those teams usually will win roughly at least 6 of 10 games. So to gain any ground, you've got to win 8 or 9 of 10, and that's really hard. And that's what we've seen.
They not only have to make up 8 points, they have to climb over 6 teams. So they have to not only hope that the teams that they're chasing, in this case, Boston and Philadelphia, stumble, and like as you said, Tampa wins 8 of 10, but they have to hope that Toronto, Florida, Islanders, Carolina, Jersey,
all those teams have to not go 6 and 10. Like and they are playing each other, so it becomes really almost impossible. Like what happens is they're playing each other, so someone's going to win those games, and that's why like last year I'm going to do the same thing I did last year, which is right after the trade deadline, I have this computer program that I can put everything together in, and it'll basically predict. There's always playoff predictions. Last year's mine was incredibly accurate. If you remember, that like nailed it. It nailed the teams that would make the playoffs, the teams that wouldn't make the playoffs in both the East and the West, almost down to the points. It was crazy. And I'm going to do it again this year. And when I put it in there, I can see the way this is going. You can see where this is going with Tampa. They're not going to be able to catch up because there aren't enough games, and all these 3-point games are going to kill them. Yep. Now it was a tough game for the Maple Leafs last night too. Obviously, this was a tough draw. Going into St. Louis after, on a big night, they're retiring a player. They're retiring
Bob Plager's
Bob Plager. Yeah, I mean St. Louis having to win because with a new coach. This was a really tough call for the tough spot for the young Leafs to be in.
It was, but like I said, I think the warning signs have been there for a while, and now they've lost 3 straight games in regulation on the road. In the last 2 games, they've given up 11 goals. Freddie Anderson has been playing less superhuman and more human. Their defense has been horrendous, and they're not getting as many goals scored as they did. And then this is the thing, and I'm writing about this today because I'm wondering whether this is the second half swoon or whether this is just a blip. And I there's no way for anybody to really know this, but the thing is, we know that it gets tougher in the second half. Teams play tighter defensively. Teams play with more energy. There's certain lackadaisical feeling that happens in the first half, and things are wide open. And now you've got a bunch of young kids, a lot of talent there, but they've never faced this high pressure.
Yeah, a lot of them have never played 60 games.
Right.
And they're reaching their 60th game, that kind of stuff. It's really, 50, 60 games. That's a lot for these guys. And
we're talking about a team that's already gone through their 5-day break, has already gone through the All-Star break. So they've gotten their rest more than some other teams. They've played the second least amount of games in the Eastern Conference. And yesterday they looked tired. So
right. And I think that a lot of that comes from being young. And I've talked to young stars, like, I remember talking to Claude Giroux about this his first couple of years, and he said there was a definite aspect to the hardest. When he asked him what the hardest part in the NHL was, I remember him saying flat out it was the amount of games you play and the fact that you have to mentally stay sharp for that many games. That you can. It's just it becomes, and I think this affected Gostisbehere last year too. It affects everybody. That just the young players, they can go out and play any one game as good as anybody else, but there are so many games, and the Leafs are playing like every other night for the rest of the year, even not even every other night, like more than that, So
now their one saving grace is that their next road game, they have 2 more road games before they go home. The next one is against Boston. Rask is hurt. He didn't practice today. He may be out. They said he had a groin problem that happened in his last game, so they're not sure the extent of that injury. Bergeron took a shot out of his knee. He's questionable. If they walk into the TD Garden without Bergeron and without Rask, they're the odds-on favorite to win that game. But if they don't win that game, then I think a little panic is going to start in Toronto about this team not being ready. And I think we fully have to expect that. I mean, I don't think it's panic.
I don't think there's going to be panic. I think the Maple Leaf fans they want to make the playoffs, obviously, and there's a bit of a Cinderella aspect to it, but if they don't make the playoffs, they were okay. They're okay with that for one more year. I think this is it. I mean, it's not going to go beyond this year, but this is it. That when you're this good, if you don't make the playoffs next year, then things will hit the wall. But right now, not good.
Well, and I'll just one thing quickly here, because it raised a lot of debate yesterday, coming from Craig Button, a former NHL general manager who does some stuff for TSN. He was on Toronto radio and was asked the question, do you think William Nylander will be on the Maple Leafs within the next year, like 12 months from now? And he said no. He said that thinks that Nylander is going to be the price that they are going to have to pay to get that young number 1 or number 2 defenseman. And I think he's right. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to go out there and shop him and move him for nothing, but the price they're going to have to pay is going to be somebody either like Van Riemsdyk or Nylander.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I can see his point, and I can see what you're saying too. The problem is that there was such good chemistry with Nylander and Austin Matthews early in the year, and that's such a hard thing to find.
Yeah, but the thing is, they moved Nylander off the line, and then Matthews had chemistry with Zach Hyman and Connor Brown. So
yeah, but not quite the same.
Not the same. It's not as dynamic, but that's
Nylander was putting up serious numbers.
Yeah.
And I mean, have they tried putting him back together at all ever? I mean, is it?
They did very briefly, and they did it yesterday for about a period, and then they put him back. It didn't work. This reminds me of a lot of stuff that used to happen in Detroit with Babcock, where he would take something that really worked and then take it apart. And Red Wings fans would constantly be telling me, why aren't they putting it back together? Why aren't they giving another shot? If Babcock doesn't like something, he's not going to go back to it. And I know Holland and Babcock used to fight about this kind of stuff all the time. This is why, Ville Leno ended up falling through the cracks. That was a big issue at one point. He started off really well, and other players along the lines of him as well. And you're seeing it now still actually coming through, even though he's not there. The only negative about Mike Babcock so far is that when he makes up his mind about something, it's impossible to change it. And that's he's decisive. He's a great coach, and that he has every right to be that. But like when he turned against a guy like Jonas Enroth, because Jonas Enroth had 3 bad games. Let's see. The AHL goaltender of the month last month was Jonas Enroth.
Yeah.
Not a bad goaltender.
No, he's not a bad goaltender at all, and he was a really sneaky pickup, and for Anaheim, right? All right. So the last thing I'll talk about, the Flyers-Canadiens game last night. This was then Tampa was in a similar spot to what the Flyers were in last night. The Flyers had to win, like St. Louis had to win. We're talking about, and where the Flyers and St. Louis got it done, Tampa didn't. But the Flyers-Canadiens game was one of the most boring Flyers-Canadiens games I've ever watched. It really was just, and this is a tradition since I was a kid I've watched and been at almost every Flyers-Canadiens game. It's 2 of my favorite teams, and this one was crazy boring in terms of the fact that the Canadiens, to the point of going after Duchene, the Canadiens had 17 shots on goal in this game, and when I remember the game, it's funny, they were trying to sell this on the Flyers broadcast. I thought like, okay, yeah, Neuwirth has made a lot of great saves. I don't remember but like 4 shots on goal in this game. Like to me, it was crazy. And there was one really great save towards the end, but it was mostly just the Canadiens really didn't bring their offense to this game, and the Flyers did a good job at shutting them down, I guess. And they checked hard, and they had to win. And you had Konechny and Gostisbehere up in the press box and everything like that. And it's funny because Konechny's getting blamed for this giveaway. That is why he was benched. And I actually don't think it was his fault at all. It's something we'll get into another time. But I thought that on that play, I thought it was a different play. I thought it was more Mark Strike gave it to Konechny in a weird spot, and Konechny had to get rid of it. Ends up turning the puck over and ends up getting benched for it. But it's funny because Konechny does look like he is 13 years old. He's one of the youngest looking players I've ever seen. And it's just funny. He just has that kind of when he's out of his uniform, that guy just looks so crazy young. And Gostisbehere, there was a really good picture of him and Gostisbehere in the press box. Gostisbehere wearing this hat, which is what I would have today, and Konechny just next to him, looking like he was like Gostisbehere's child. It's just crazy. And Gostisbehere's not old, but oh my gosh, holy cow! Anyway,
the league's getting younger. What can we say? Mitch Marner looks.
Oh, I know. I've seen him too. Yeah. So, gosh, he's crazy. He looked unbelievably young too. I mean, yeah, Matthews doesn't look young, for it at all. He kind of has like a.
Well, he's a bigger kid. He's 6.
It's the size. Part of it's the size, but to me, oh my gosh, to me, it's big. I will never forget how young Patrick Kane looked when he was drafted. That to me, that was the youngest of any player I've ever seen. That was just crazy. He looked like a child. And the person who maybe looked younger than him when he was drafted was Johnny Gaudreau, who really still looks crazy young You know, and has that like Danny Briere, where Danny Briere looks young now and is, you know, he's 40 years old almost.
Well, I don't know if the NHL was doing what they do now and parading out the top 5 picks at the Stanley Cup when Kane was the presumptive first overall pick. But all you had to do was put him side to side with Van Riemsdyk, who's 6'4".
Oh yeah, no, they did that, and I was there for that, and it was crazy. It was really funny. I mean, I think that was also when, I think, wasn't that the year Peter Angelo was drafted too, maybe?
No, that was the next year.
That was the next year. Okay.
I'm pretty sure the 3rd pick was maybe Kyle Turris.
Yeah. Okay. So I wasn't at that. That was the first draft I covered. So I didn't see when they paraded them out. Like the first one I saw was the Peter Angelo.
Yeah, that was 08
draft. And I'm talking to those guys at the finals. That was fun. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. So that's all the time we have for today, folks. Enjoy your weekend. Lots of games on tap. I mean, because we're coming out of the All-Star break for a Friday night. Got quite a few games for a Friday night tonight. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would say the game of the night. Let's see. What do you think here? I guess the Blue Jackets and the Penguins, right?
Oh yeah,
got to be it. I mean, you know, it's interesting. The Islanders have the Red Wings tonight. That game's on NHL Network, and the Islanders.
I would have to say that if Detroit loses that game, and I'm not being overly dramatic, Detroit right now is at 49 points in last place in the East. If they lose that game, then open up the pocketbooks. They're selling.
Yeah, they're going to sell. I think they're selling anyway. But this is a real chance for the Islanders to continue this roll, you know, which has really put them into the spot where they're going to win 8 of 10, 9 of 10 games. They're going to pick up some room. So that's what's happening.
Yeah, if the Islanders win tonight, they move in a tie with the Maple Leafs. Same amount of games. They'd have 55 points, 3 points behind the Flyers. And they would move back into the race for either the 3rd wild card or the 2nd wild card in the East. So that would be based on what they've been doing before Capuano was fired. That's remarkable that they've.
Oh, it's incredible, and you know, Florida could be right back in this thing too.
Correct.
The Flyers schedule coming up, which, you know, so for those Leaf fans who are looking to see, you know, what they have to catch, the Flyers schedule coming up is not a great one. They have the Kings on Saturday. The Blues they're home for all these games. The Kings, Blues, Islanders, and Sharks. They're on a 5-game homestand. Montreal was the first one, but that's what they've got. That's what they got up against in these 5 home games. Those are tough teams.
Well, the one thing, because the one advantage that everybody was talking about in regards to Toronto was the number of games in hand that they have. Well, they're making them up quickly. They're now at 49. They're now at 49 games. The only team that they have like a massive amount of games in hand on is Boston, and you know, everybody else has got 50, 51, 52 games, and they have 49. So probably within a couple of weeks, that game advantage will be gone. And if they're not tied or in, you know, a couple points ahead, then they've blown that advantage.
Yeah. I mean, they've the next couple games, the Islanders, Buffalo. I mean, for the Maple Leafs, Buffalo, the Islanders, the Blue Jackets, the Senators, Carolina, Winnipeg. They've got a little bit of a chance here to pick up some ground before they hit the. Then they got the Rangers, Canadians, Sharks, Kings, and Ducks. That's where it gets a lot harder. But
that's a tough schedule, Eck. That's a really tough schedule.
Yeah. I mean, you got to look down the stretch, you know, too. That's always the big thing. Down the stretch is not too bad for them. They've got Detroit a couple times, which helps because Detroit's going to be out of it.
We're in the first week of February, and they have not played the Columbus Blue Jackets yet.
Right. Yeah, they got the Blue Jackets a bunch.
Normally that wouldn't mean anything, but when you have 33 games to go and 1/10 of your schedule, or a little less than 1/10 of your schedule, is against the team that's been one of the best teams in the league.
Right.
That's scary. 2
of them away, so it's going to be tough. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Thank you so much for watching. Tell your friends, subscribe on YouTube. We will talk to you Monday. Take care, guys.